Hey everybody, welcome to We Are ACEDS. I'm Maribel Rivera, an independent marketing and event strategist and the Senior Director of Community Relations at ACEDS. ACEDS is dedicated to diversity, inclusion, and equity through our partnership with Pipeline to Practice and through our IDEA Committee, which is basically members of all of our global chapters have come together to make sure that we're driving diversity and inclusion everywhere on a global scale. Having conversations around these diversity and inclusion topics, including difficult ones, are part of how we believe we can help move the needle forward. Last week, Ari Kaplan had the honor of speaking with Sonia Judkins, Manager of Discovery and Compliance at T-Mobile. This week, Wale Elegbe, Senior Manager at Deloitte, is taking over our social channels to continue talking about diversity. Some quick housekeeping. If you'd like to share any feedback or if you have a question, a comment, a thought, please submit in the comments. Wale and his guests are going to be taking comments and questions and answering those live as you share them. So feel free to really engage with them. And we'll share them on the screen and respond. If you just want to say hi, you can do that too. He'll be able to say that. He'll say hi right back. Don't forget to use those reactions and share as much as possible. This video will be recorded and you'll be able to share that from Facebook or YouTube or our LinkedIn page. Now I'll turn it over to Wale.
Great, thanks Maribel, and thank you to the entire ACEDS team for providing this platform for us to have relevant and timely discussions. We really appreciate it. I am wondering though, I see a little shine, I'm wondering when your lighting crew, hair and makeup is going to show up so they can help this presentation along. I'm sure we'll move along. Again, my name is Wale Elegbe. I'm a Senior Manager or VP in the Service Delivery function of this Deloitte's Discovery and Data Management Group. I've been in the legal technology space for over 20 years, and wow, that even sounds crazy to say. I've worked on both the traditional service provider side. I've worked in a law firm prior to landing here at Deloitte almost 4 years ago. Again, as Maribel mentioned, I am going to help facilitate a discussion with one of my dear friends and former colleagues, Angelique Harris. And Angelique, I'll turn it to you to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Wale. Hi, everyone. This is Angelique Harris. I'm Vice President and Assistant General Counsel with JP Morgan Chase. Have just about, I guess, the same number of years as Wale, so that's pretty scary how time flies. But definitely has been a wonderful ride, and love that I can continue to connect with both former and current colleagues, and especially to have this great discussion. So thank you, ACEDS, for having us.
Excellent. Thanks to the folks that are joining. Hey, Julie. Hey, Mike Q. Again, as people pop in, we're going to try and help facilitate a great dialogue here and hopefully take some of your questions. Our discussion today is going to center generally about equity and inclusion and how professionals of color must learn to often navigate challenges as part of our professional growth. So when Maribel and I spoke about this as a relevant topic for Black History Month, the first thing that popped up to me is what happens after Black History Month. All right, how do we continue that conversation? So we had some discussions about that, and we landed on, sort of this format, which is a conversation or interview format. And immediately I jumped to Angelique. Angelique and I go way back, and as we're pushing beyond Black History Month, I thought it'd be great to sit and have a conversation with a dear friend about this very important topic. It's certainly not lost on us that it's also Women's History Month, so relevant and timely there as well. Now, before we jump in, I must say that our views here are our own, representative of our respective career journeys, and do not necessarily represent the views of our respective companies. Okay, Angelique, any thoughts before we dive in?
No, let's dive right in.
Okay. Like I said, I've known Angelique for about 7 or 8 years. She's been a colleague, trusted advisor, always a calm voice of reason. When we worked together, we gave her the appropriate nickname of Angelique. And just like your favorite aunt, she would provide guidance. She had opinions, lots of opinions.
Just
And
a
most
few, just
of
a
all,
few.
right. But most of all, she always kept it real and kept it, 100, and would always tell you exactly what's on her mind, and with the lens of trying to elevate her colleagues as well. Now, she and I have had many conversations over the years, and Angelique, I was hoping maybe we just have one of those conversations now. And maybe just to level set, why don't you start by, maybe offering some of your thoughts on what we're seeing around the country, around the world, even around inequity in general, especially given a spotlight on social justice issues.
Sure. I think that what we're seeing now is it's truly remarkable. It's been a long time coming. I think the fact that the world was put on pause because of the coronavirus pandemic, you can't escape it. You can't go run to the next movie premiere, go run to whatever event. We were all stuck in our respective homes. And when the events, particularly of George Floyd, happened, it couldn't be ignored. There was nothing else to detract from it. And not only were there protests in the US, it happened globally. I mean, the fact that I heard there were protests happening in Germany, in India, I mean, it's just remarkable that it was just so obvious of the way justice, as it may be, is just disproportionately served or disserved. And I think that with that, and the fact that people weren't ready to just say, wait until the next event, individuals had to speak up. I think corporations followed suit, and the conversations have been ongoing. And I think it's now people are just sick of having to see, have another hashtag, add another name to the plate. People really want to know what they can change. And sometimes you may not be able to change what is outside, but people are really thinking, what can they do in their individual careers, or their individual departments, their individual companies. And that's the only way you're going to have change, really, to see what incremental change, those step by step, what you can do. And I really think that that's what we're still continuing to see. And I'm happy that we're still seeing it. Wasn't lost in the moment over the summer.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Oh, you might have to mute while I speak technology. It's interesting you say, we were in it and we were immersed in it. We couldn't go to the next thing. And the interesting thing about the pandemic is, our home became our offices, and, we're watching the news while we're working, and things going on around us. So I think it forced us to sort of look at all of this from a professional lens as well, right?
Exactly.
Usually you come home and you sort of put things to the side, but you're at work, at home, and you're having those conversations with, spouses and your family members, but also having to, flip and get on a Zoom and put on the face and be okay. So, that's an interesting
or okay to not be okay.
Exactly.
I think this was the first time where it was acceptable to say, you know what, I think I need a moment. And I think that more people said that haven't said it before. And I think that that's what really also caused a pause.
Right. And across, racial spectrums, right? People were paying attention. And I think, looking at a colleague that may, be absorbing something a little bit differently than you, or maybe the same way as you, it sort of forced this, unified reaction, I guess is the best way that I can call it. But, with that also comes, difficult conversations, or conversations in general, and just sort of an overall attention to this. So looking at it from a professional lens, I mentioned, you and I go way back, and I've been honored to be part of your professional journey. I know, we work together. Maybe it's helpful to sort of, start there and talk through your professional journey, what that has entailed over the years, and maybe, if you're willing to talk about any challenges along the way, and maybe if there's been any sort of direct or indirect challenges based on race or even gender.
Sure, definitely. I look at them now as opportunities. I mean, yes, they were challenges, but they were opportunities for me to understand the best way to react, or sometimes not react to different situations. There are a couple that still stick with me to this day. I remember maybe a year or so after graduating law school, and I was working on this particularly large discovery matter, and we were working offsite, the good old doc review, and this was an off-site location. We weren't at the law firm. They specifically wanted us to dress casually because they didn't want to necessarily know how many attorneys were going through this voluminous amount of documents. But because they were also secure documents, we had security there, and there was a guard there. And I remember walking in, into the location, and I was stopped by my other colleagues that were not Black like myself were able to go in. And I was asked, and I was specifically told, no, this is for attorneys. And I said, okay, yes, but I'm an attorney. I'm going in. I'm not so sure about that. Do you have some ID so I can check you, see if your name is on the list? Now, meanwhile, I'm watching my other colleagues who I've worked with day in and day out. They were able to go in, not asked anything. It was just okay that they were there, and they must be the attorneys, that they were not questioned. I needed my job, so I proceeded to get my identification, and they said, oh yeah, I see your name on the list. And it was interesting. There was no apologies, no anything. It was just like, okay, I guess you're okay. And it really, that was something that stuck with me, because I was someone that throughout my childhood, my family always said, if you get that education, that is what folks will see when you open your mouth, and they're going to hear how much knowledge you have. That's something that's going to help you to get through some of the difficulties that you might face. And I kind of thought that, okay, I'm now an attorney. I've graduated not only college, law school. I'm not going to have to deal with this. And that was the first time where I'm like, oh, this still isn't going away. I'm still going to have to be questioned while I see others aren't being questioned. But so that was something that stuck out. I also had something that was borderline sexist and racist that happened to me. I remember I was working at another place, and I had a particular manager who would make interesting comments. And I'll never forget, I was having lunch with one of my friends, it happened to be a Black woman, and he came up to us and he was like, you guys know who Robert De Niro is, right? And I'm thinking, of course, who doesn't know Robert De Niro? He's like, oh, well, he's into Black chicks, right? And I'm like, where is this coming from? So I just couldn't believe the audacity for that to be okay to say and to make that the frame of reference. I'm thinking he's going to go Godfather 2. I'm thinking he's going to talk about a movie, but that's just immediately where it landed. And I did get particularly upset. And I do recall there was another associate who basically, was just like, hey, are you okay? And I explained that it basically confided in her what happened. And she was just like, you have to say something. That's unacceptable. Yeah. And I did. And, I felt good that I was encouraged to open my mouth, and, things were handled the way they needed to be handled. But that's why I look at that as, yes, that might've been a challenge, but it was an opportunity for me to know that my voice does matter. But I mean, other than that, I love sometimes surprising people where they might think Angelique Harris might look one way, and then I walk in and like, here I am.
Isn't that the best show? Right?
It absolutely is.
Just to flip it, right?
Exactly.
And you give an example, of sort of the good old days of, warehouse doc reviews and doc paper. And as you were talking, I said, oh, wow, I remember those days. And, funny story, managing, early in my career, managing a large doc review in a warehouse, right? And I remember people would ask me, oh, what do you do? And I thought, let me give them a story like this to sort of help, level set or understand what it is that I do. And I was telling the story, and I happened upon, one of these large reviews, and the sensitivity of the nature and the documents called for, U.S. Marshals to be there,
Right.
So sort of mentioned, oh, this is happening, and there's a U.S. Marshal there, and, he had his hand, on his holster the entire time. And, to me, that's the nature of the work. To the people I was talking to, it immediately, resonated as, well, were they there for you? I was like, I'm at work, but, just little things like that where, there might be a slight disconnect, and, people don't sort of think through or have things resonate. But, that's, the earlier days of our career. Like if we look at the professional landscape today across the country, even across the globe.
Mhm.
Do you see, progress has been made at all regarding, diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I mean, I see it. Unfortunately, I see sometimes it's one step forward, one step back. But I think now where we are, it's why haven't we made further steps? Which I think is an interesting way to look at it. I feel like that is kind of the discussion when you look at whether it's law firms, whether it's corporations. What is the landscape of, if you want to say, look at Black attorneys, Latinx attorneys, women attorneys? I think that the question now is, why aren't we at X? Why are we still looking at the same percentages from 10 years, 20 years ago? And I think that to me is an important question, because I think it points to what Maribel explained in the introduction. It's about that pipeline, right? Yeah. Because there should be greater representation, because when you look at the overall percentages of who's being represented, whether it's partners, whether it's your very high level folks, that landscape hasn't changed in decades. And that's something that needs to be addressed, whether that's looking at not only pipeline, but retention at these places, whether that is looking at law schools and how they're necessarily recruiting, how they're supporting students through their time in law school. So I think that the landscape is at a point, it's definitely at a point where it can improve. I don't think that there's been many changes, though, over the course of my time overall, because as I said, it's one step forward, two steps back. I think everybody knows the same top attorneys or the top Black Latinx attorneys all over, and they could probably name them, right? So I think now it's about building a broader network, making sure that there's that pipeline. And I'm hopeful that we will be able to say that we're seeing the improvement.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And I think that's, the small handful. It's great that people are there, but what can be done to bolster that a bit? And I always look at it from it's not a lower standards piece. It never has to be about that. It's creating sort of a platform or an avenue for equity, so everyone has the same chance to show how great they are to advance to that next level, and making sure that, a lot of these, companies have been around for, the rules were 150, 200 years ago, right? So making sure that the rules get adjusted to, again, provide an equal footing and an equal platform so that people can have an opportunity to show how great they are. But I'm with you. I'm hopeful. I think to your point, there's an inflection point now, given spotlights, given the culture, given people are home and paying attention more, and people are looking at this stuff. So part of the reason why Black History Month is great, but I want to look beyond. I want to have these conversations tomorrow and the next day. So I think it's going to be important, to give voices to this. Okay, good. As you journey through your career, I know in your story you mentioned, having a senior associate, sort of giving you some advice. Did you find that you needed to have sort of mentors or champions along the way?
I would say with that, I didn't realize I needed them probably until later in my career. As I said, I was someone that once I knew I was done with school, I must know everything. Look at me. I've got my degree. I've got my bar license. What do you need me to do? I don't need anyone to show me the way. I have done all of this myself. And I think with that, I didn't realize the importance of a mentor until probably the first time I kind of delved into the technology side of things. And I worked at a e-discovery service provider where Mary Mack, not reluctantly, but became my mentor, because I think I kind of came in with the attitude, of course, I understand e-discovery. And I explained this little bit that I knew, and she proceeded to hand me 5 books to explain, the full EDRM. And, she's someone that has always kind of been there for me to push me and say, okay, you have this perspective, make sure you get the law firm perspective. And when I went to the law firm, she was like, in-house might be next. And sure enough, that's how I knew that I wanted to kind of make that jump to JP Morgan Chase. So I wish that I had appreciated the need for a mentor earlier in my career. That was kind of maybe a good 5 or 6 years post law school. And if anything, it's you don't know everything. It's okay to ask questions. And my best advice that I've learned now is that people do like to help people because they like to show how smart they are. And if you can leverage that to help you, why not? And you have to be open to offer that in return. So, and I think once I learned that from Mary, every job I had since then, it was always seeking out those that knew more than I did. How can I get to learn more? Going to shine a little bit of a light on you, Wale. I mean, when you were my manager, and we would have conversations, I remember you would say, "Well, what does Angelique need to get to that next level? What is it that you want? How can I help you?" And I love that because I think a little bit of my mindset is, but I'm working so hard, I'm doing all these hours, just do it for me. But no, I had to make sure I was taking ownership of my career. And you were always good about that, about trying to let me think about it. What is it that you want? Do you want to, help be a team lead? Do you want to be that person that people come to? I mean, I did kind of get the whole Angelique name because I was kind of in a lot of people's business, but you saw that strength in me, and I had to see it in myself to understand what was the next step after that. So I think it's just about understanding where you want to go and not and being open to asking for guidance on that.
Yeah, and I appreciate the kind words, but it was easy. I had a great team there. You were part of that great team, which allowed me to sort of come in with that approach of, my success is hinging on this team being successful. So
wow, okay, we've gone back to 2013 because I remember you saying that all the time.
Some of those taglines, they stick with you, right? But being able to sort of provide a runway and clear the deck and make sure there's an opportunity for growth. I mean, that was something that I was always about.
Exactly.
And you mentioned the desire, natural desire to want to help people. I mean, it's human nature for us to want to help each other and watch each other succeed. So, but a lot of times I feel, at least during growing in my career, it was a bit sort of difficult to gather all of those mentors because of some of the things you mentioned. I don't need someone to watch over me, or it's their job. They should be doing this for me. I didn't think of it as a sort of the symbiotic relationship.
Right.
So I guess any advice you'd give to sort of up and coming professionals, especially young Black female professionals or professionals of color in the litigation technology space, if they're starting their career or just at the beginning, what sort of advice would you have for them?
I think to be open to reach out to schedule one-to-ones, reach out to have a coffee. I mean, it might be a bit different now that we're in these days, but I never understood the importance of networking. I feel like a little bit too late, although it's never too late. Networking is so important. And it's not something that needs to be awkward because in general, people want to know that they can help, whether they can do it or they can connect with someone. It's all about expanding your network, and you never know when that network will come back into your time. I mean, I'm gonna pick on you again, Wale. I mean, I just came back from London, and were you not in London a year or so ago? And sure enough, it was we ended up having dinner with the fellow S&C alum, and you just never know. And it's just a matter of making those connections. I think I talked about, just different issues of understanding data privacy and kind of taking my American mind and now being over there and having to deal with it. It's just never too late to ask for, hey, I'm dealing with X. How did you maybe navigate that?
Yeah.
And it doesn't stop just in the beginning of your career, because the only way you're going to grow is to continue to have those challenges, or as I like to call them, opportunities. And it's how you navigate them. And then you can continue to give back to others as they're coming back. Right. As Jamar said, we have to create opportunities unapologetically.
Shout out Jamar. Jamar, yo, what's going on, man? Robert Cruz, I see you as well.
Yes,
Again,
see
thanks
you.
everyone for joining. So it's really interesting, some of the things you mentioned, and I think, pointing back to it, I'm happy that you're, some of these things that I strive for, at least in my career, and making sure reaching back, that they're resonating.
Yes.
I guess flipping it on you, and not to put you on the spot, but how open are you to being a champion or to being one of those advocates for, people that might be watching this later on thinking, I think I know some stuff, but I may need someone to sort of bounce ideas off of. So how open are you to people probably in the industry to do the same thing for them?
I'm absolutely open to that because I feel one of the best things I loved when we started working together at SNC is that I saw you as my manager. I saw other diverse managers, and it said to me, I could do that. So I want to continue to whomever is out there, whether they're starting the middle of the career, to know you can do that too, whether it's opening your mouth to be that voice or working your way up to, being a manager as well. I'm definitely open to that. It is part of my nature. And I think it's just, I feel like it's almost not a choice not to do that.
Yeah.
And I have pride for that.
Yeah, and again, I think Jamar said it. I'm gonna have to take that line, Jamar.
Yes.
To find the opportunity, you must reach back to create opportunities.
Absolutely.
Unapologetically. So I think it's great there. So Maribel, I think you're still with us. I don't know if any questions are coming in, or Angelique and I, we can talk all day long. But are there any questions coming in, or any questions that you guys want to ask? Okay. All right. Well, I guess let's, maybe we'll continue the conversation. Angelique, anything else sort of from a career trajectory? You've worked at some, impressive companies. You've probably gathered a lot of people along the way that have been part of your career journey. Any other sort of, tidbits, words of wisdom you want to sort of embark on people that might be watching and listening?
I would say never turn down an opportunity. The worst that can happen is that it may not have been the best choice, but you have to go for it. I know I've had the opportunity to travel the world with my job. I remember where I was approached when I worked at a company, and there was something that was going on in London. They had never sent anyone over there before. And they said, would you mind maybe going to help out that office? I said, absolutely. And then a year later, we had an opportunity where we were actually working in Macau. And little did I think that this girl from Jersey would be on a 16-hour flight from New York to Hong Kong, a 2-hour speedboat to Macau, working with the client directly. And those are the kinds of experiences. And it was very interesting because I must say that they don't see too many Black women in Macau. So I was treated royally. I don't know who they thought I was, but they thought I was some celebrity. But it's the idea of when opportunities come your way, there's nothing wrong with saying yes. Don't be scared of it. Don't think because it's out of your comfort zone. You just have to try that, because until we make it normal for you to do things that maybe you didn't plan to do, that's the only way that you're going to be seen.
Yeah. Excellent. And that's really good advice. And I think, both of us can be a testament to folks that you can succeed. Your voice can be heard, right? You can travel the world. Getting used to, hopping a flight and jaunting around Europe for work. It took a little bit to get used to, but that happens, right? And people do recognize sort of the value that one can bring to a position such as this. So I, like you, will pledge to, any sort of someone starting in their career, reach out and we can have some dialogues about how best to shape careers, or at least have a conversation about the paths that my career, Angelique's career, has led us.
And I would say the best thing that we all need to do, no matter where you are in your career, is you have to continue to educate yourself. This is no longer a time for ignorance. There's too many books, there's too many movies, too many blogs. there's just too much information out there that you can continue to educate yourself as well.
Awesome. So I'm looking at sort of the live feed now, and it looks like Maribel has sourced a question. So I'll read it just in real time and we can sort of go through it. So she says she's currently mentoring a young lady who has shortened her name because she says people perceive her differently when she states her ethnic name. So how should that situation be dealt with? So well, you want to go first?
I'm going to go first because as someone whose name is Angelique with 9 letters and could never fit the full name in like those old school Scantrons when you had to put your name, and like the only person that could ever call me Angie is my mother. And I mean, everybody knows this. They would always say, oh, can we call you Ange? Can we call you Angie? No, my name is Angelique. I mean, maybe it's Starbucks. Occasionally I'll let them say Angie, but you know, it's your name. Your family put too much pride in that. People can learn, you know, people have learned to say other things. I mean, you should never have to, you know, it's not your job to make people feel comfortable by making you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's, you know, interesting. And, you know, with the name Wale, and actually yours went off the Scantron, mine on my birth certificate rolls off the end of the paper. So my full name, Akinwale Olanrewaju Oladele Oladipo Elegbe. So it's long.
Yes.
There's a lot of meaning behind that name. I go by Wale, that's, you know, what my family calls me. But I remember sort of growing up how, you know, much like this young lady that that Maribel is mentoring, just having a complex about that, because you know, when they're calling roll in middle school, you know, that little pause before they get to your name, right? Or, you know, just trying to socialize. And you made a good point. You know, I for a long time defaulted to, you know, what this young lady is doing. Let me shorten it. Let me make it easy for people because it just takes that discomfort out of the way. So I went by Wally for a long time because that's just what people would say. That's what it was easiest for them. And that sort of followed through high school and a little bit into college. And I went to boarding school in Connecticut, and you know, there was like this many Black people. So we all knew each other and we got together, and there were some friends who said exactly what you said. It's your name, right? People have said harder things. So if you don't sort of stand up and say, you know, well, it's Wale, you know, I will teach you how to say it, then you're giving them a free pass, right? And you're taking a little bit sort of away from sort of what you represent or what defines you, right? So, you know, my dad, you know, says you can change your name, you can go to the courthouse and change it, but you can't change the family that gave you that name. So the best way to honor that is to just stand by the strong name that you have. So I force people now, you know, even on Zoom, I mean, it's Wale, right? And we can say it. People default to what's easy. So Maribel, I think for that young lady, I think it's, you know, sort of strength in your name. It's what you have, right? Your parents, your family gave you that name. So people can learn to do certain things, and that discomfort from saying, you know, that little awkward moment, it becomes less and less awkward for you, and that awkwardness sort of flips to someone else saying, oh my gosh, I need to be mindful of saying someone's name correctly, and over time it gets a little bit easier. So hopefully that has answers that question. I don't know if you have any additional points to add there.
No, I think we covered that one.
Okay, another one came in. How do you ask about DEI policies when interviewing? Yeah, ask about it. I mean, right? You go ahead, Angelique.
Now is the time where you can just ask about it. I think it's just as important. If that's something that's important to you, you have to ask about it. Remember, when interviewing, they're not only interviewing you, you are interviewing them in that company. So if that's something that's important to you, you just go ahead and ask about it.
100%. And that point you made, you're interviewing them. A lot of people think, oh, you know, the nervousness is on me because I need to present my best foot forward. Is that a place you want to work, right? Do you want to wake up, you know, love what you do and you'll never, you know, work a day in your life? That saying, can you see yourself getting up and being around the people you're going to be working with every single day for multiple hours a day? And you know, to know that, you got to ask what, you know, what they're about, to make sure that their value system, or even just from a culture standpoint, jives with what might be important to you.
Yes.
So, yeah, short answer, ask in as direct a way as you can. Any other questions on there? Okay, I see another one. What can I do to push diversity in my organization? So I have some thoughts about that. I think, to Angelique's point, we gotta have that conversation, right? We have to be bold to you know, call out when we feel like there's inequity, right? I think the world is listening now. They should have been listening, you know, forever, but there's a great opportunity now to sort of wade into the spotlight and have some strength and some boldness about pushing forward things that are important to us, and realize that you're not alone. There are probably people within your organization that are thinking about, well, how best can we push diversity through our organization? So there's strength in numbers, and if you know, I'm happy to have conversations about, you know, what I've seen, books I've read, and sort of different things like that. So feel free to reach out. Angelique, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would definitely echo. It's say it. You have to open your mouth. You have to be bold. And you know, with organizations, the numbers don't lie. And I mean, there's been plenty of studies that show how profits are tied when you have diversity, and that's diversity of thought. You know, when you don't just have the same thought, the same people that have been doing the same things over and over again for decades. It is literally it can affect the bottom line.
Excellent. Okay, I think we've gone through some live stream. I see we're a little bit past the time, and some people have to drop. So thank you guys for joining. And again, I want to sort of pivot back to the beyond Black History Month piece, right? So I feel like, you know, we've been saying it's incumbent on us to have a dialogue, to continue it, to do the bold things. And my pledge is to continue to have discussions like this. And I'm hoping, Angelique, you know, I think I can speak for you that you will do the same. And some of the things I plan to do, you know, basically just continue mentoring, having discussions within my organization, outside my organization, my kids' school, in the community. So those are some of the things I'll be doing. And I hope to see some of our litigation technology friends and family members doing the same as well.
Absolutely. We just have to continue the dialogue, continue to educate yourselves, continue to ask questions. That's really the key. Continue to be a bit vulnerable, have those conversations. And I think that that's the only way we're going to continue to grow.
Yeah. And Maribel, I know, you know, these are topics that are dear to you. So if there's anything from an ACEDS standpoint or organization standpoint, you know, happy to continue this dialogue. And like I said, Angelique and I can talk for hours. But with that, again, I want to thank the ACEDS and the We Are ACEDS platform for allowing us to take this over today. Oh, my doorbell's ringing. I think that's hair and makeup. They are officially here to be ready for this. But Angelique, I also want to thank you so much. Thanks for allowing us to have this conversation, being vulnerable, and telling us a lot about your professional story.
Thank you. This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.